When it comes to packing a backpack, there are a couple things to think about. The first thing is, how small can I get my things inside this pack? The smaller you get your things inside the pack, and the more compressed they are, the smaller the pack you'll be able to carry, and the better it will carry on your back. The next thing to think about is, can I keep the things that need to be accessible, like sunscreen, lunch, and rain gear, accessible and near the top of my pack? So let's take a closer look at one way you can make that happen. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my backpack and find the compression straps, which are these straps located on the sides of the pack, and I'm going to open them up in full. If I had a pack that had a separate sleeping bag compartment with a zipper here, then I would reach down and inside the pack, I would find the separation component, which is usually just a flap of fabric that's separating the lower compartment from the upper compartment, and I would open up. Usually that's a couple clips or a zipper that I'm opening, so I can use this backpack as one giant sleeve rather than two separate compartments. Once that's all open, I'm going to choose whether or not I line my backpack. In the Pacific Northwest, if there is any % chance of precipitation for the day that I'm hiking in, the day one of my trip, then I'll always line my backpack with a contractor bag to prevent rain from getting inside my pack and wetting all my things. I won't use one of these waterproof pack covers because as you'll see, I'm going to be attaching things to the outside of my backpack like an ice axe or a picket, and if I use this waterproof backpack cover, that could get punctured, or if it's windy on the way into camp, which is often the case when rain comes in, then those backpack covers can blow away. So we're going to line our pack first. So here I have my contractor bag. Open that up, and I'll shove that in until it's at the bottom, and then I'll open up the top. If I want, I can also use a pair of scissors to trim the top to the relative height of my backpack. But for me, I like to have the contractor bag a little bit on the larger side so that later when I get to camp, I can pull it out of my pack in the rain, and it makes it really easy to rifle through it, pull things out without any rain getting inside, and I have my separate backpack I can even throw things into as I go to keep things organized. So now my backpack is lined. The other two things you'll notice are in this pile with my pack are my inflatable sleeping pad, and if I've brought one, usually I'll only bring a sit pad if I'm going to camp on snow, or maybe just for a little bit of comfort if it's a really rocky campsite, but usually I'll bring it for snow for sure, as is my sit pad. So I've got my inflatable pad and my sit pad, and I will fold my inflatable pad to be about the same shape as the back panel of my backpack, and I'll put that in first. And I'm putting that right in toward the back of my pack. And then if I brought my sit pad, I'm going to put this on top of that, making like a sandwich here where this sit pad is like the outermost piece of bread, you can see. And what that does is that protects my air mattress from any sharp things or bulky things with edges that I'm going to put in my pack next. So that's the first step to packing your pack. The next step is to divide your gear up into piles. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but this is the way that I like to do it because it nails a few categories that help me organize my equipment really well. I'm using an A, B, C, D, E system. So I'll go through those letters right now. So A is for accessibles. These are things you want near the top of your pack or be able to pull out in case rain comes in or cold weather comes in. B are big things, bulky things, things that you might put in a pack at a certain time and then be able to pack around them. C is compressibles or compact items. These are things that you can smush around the big stuff. D is your day clothing. And your day clothing you're going to be wearing with you, so you don't want it to go in your backpack. You might want to set it near your bed or near your door so you change right into it and it doesn't get packed somewhere that it didn't expect it to be. E means edges, and that stands for anything that has an edge that you're afraid could damage something if it were packed inside your backpack. So the most common things that have edges that we're bringing mountaineering are like maybe an ice axe and a picket. Sometimes pickets can have sharper edges, especially when used. Crampons, usually I'm going to put inside my backpack, inside a pouch, so that those edges are protected because it's kind of heavy and can pull the weight away from my pack. But occasionally I'll pack crampons on the outside too. That's A, B, C, D, E, and then F is for later items. Things like a nice cotton t-shirt, a comfortable pair of flip-flops or tennis shoes, and maybe a beer or a soda water and a bag of chips that I'm going to have later. Let's take a closer look at each of these piles. So here I'm in the accessibles pile, so the A. And you'll see the things that I'm keeping accessible. I try to keep my necessary accessibles relatively minimal because there's not always a lot of external pouches or pockets on packs in order to pack accessibles. And then other things that are accessible that don't fit in those external pouches, I might just put near the top of my pack. But some things you certainly want to have: water. I usually only bring around 500 milliliters if I have a filter bottle like this, because that's going to be more than enough to get me to my first creek on most of the types of trips that we do. And then I can just refill from the creek. So there's no need to bring like 3 liters of water. If you're bringing a Camelback or a bladder, then that's not necessarily possible. So we don't really recommend that you bring a Camelback or some kind of a bladder because accessing it can be difficult and they tend to burst inside people's packs. Other things I've got my lunch, snacks and things. So everything I might want to eat before I get to camp. I've got some sunscreen and chapstick. I've got my sunglasses and rain gear, a hat in case it's a little cold. I have, a GPS emergency device. Guides should certainly keep this accessible if I am a participant on a trip and I'm using it mostly to communicate just back home. It doesn't necessarily have to be accessible. You don't have to have this clipped to a shoulder strap of your pack. You can pack it deeper inside if you want. It's not a bad idea because sometimes people could lose these as they get snagged on bushes on the way to camp. I have a headlamp. That's going to be not as important on the way into camp, but might be important later in the day. I might want to be able to access that. And, a spoon and a bowl. This doesn't have to be in my accessibles pile. This could actually be over in my compressibles pile, which I'll get to in a minute. But this helps keep it at the top of my pack so I always know where it is. So next I have my big or bulky items, the B pile. In this case, I've organized it into a row. So these items could be a tent, a sleeping bag, my crampons if I'm packing them inside my pack, which I recommend you do if you have the volume of pack necessary for it. My helmet or other group gear items like a fuel canister or a pot or stove. And you'll also notice here, this is a really good tip. Anytime you have a concave piece of equipment like a pot, it's a good idea to fill it up with other compressible or compact items. In this case, I filled it up with food, and that's kind of nice because if I have anything like granola bars that can get crushed, it prevents them from getting crushed. And that's a great use of the space in my backpack. Here we've moved on to our C pile, which is compressible or compact items, things that don't take up a lot of space in your pack, and it's fine if you smush them down. So, this pile, you can see it's a lot of random things thrown together. This can be anything that doesn't need to be accessible and that's not that big and bulky. You'll see like I have my extra water bottle in here. I have food in here that's been packed in freezer bags so I can smash that. My spare puffy jacket that I'm not going to use at the lower altitudes on my way to camp. It's not that cold. I have my gloves I'm probably not going to use. My long johns that are going to get smushed down. So all my technical gear, all of that stuff doesn't need to be accessible. It's best just to throw it in one pile. It's going to make your packing way faster, and it's going to make your pack a lot smaller and more compact when we get into actually how to pack it. Here we've moved on to the D pile for day clothing. These are the things that you don't want to accidentally pack inside your pack, things you're going to wear up the trail on the way into camp. Down here with the footwear, we have two different options. Earlier season when I'm hiking on snow, or if it's a shorter trail, like a lot of the time on the Coleman-Deming side of Mount Baker, I'll just wear my mountain boots and I won't bring a comfortable pair of trail runners because either I'm not going that far or a lot of the approach is going to be on snow anyway. If I were going to wear my trail runners on the way into camp, then these would go in the B pile for big or bulky stuff. Of course, I want a pair of socks with those. Trail runners, again, long approach into camp, certainly Glacier Peak, an Olympus, maybe Baker, probably not Rainier. I'm probably going to go with my alpine boots. But if there are already creek crossings, those can be really nice to wear instead. And then I have a pair of soft shell pants. I have a sun shirt, and I have a grid fleece. That's usually what I'll be wearing on the way into camp. If it gets a little bit colder or if it's earlier season, then I might want to have my puffy jacket instead of in my compressibles pile. Might want to have it in my accessibles pile. And then remember, my rain gear, which also serves as a wind layer, is always in my accessibles pile, which means it's going to get packed near the top of my backpack. That's going to bring for my day clothing the D pile. So here I'm with my E pile, and E is for edges. Those edges could be your ice axe, they could be a picket, especially pickets that have been banged up a little bit. It could be a trekking pole. You know, the trekking pole doesn't have much for edges other than this tip, but we're going to still keep it in the same pile because the edges pile we're going to attach to the outside of our backpack. And by keeping the trekking pole there in the edges pile and attaching to the outside, we make sure it comes with us instead of getting left at home. Here we're on our last pile, which is the F pile or the for later pile. The for later pile also does not go inside your backpack. It goes, usually I'll put it in like a reusable shopping bag, and I'll put it inside my car, and it stays in the car all the way while we're out in the mountains, and I come back and I pick it up. And so I've got a nice pair of sandals in there, maybe not my size, this pair. Got a nice comfortable t-shirt, soda water. I'll usually bring a bag of salt and vinegar potato chips. So whatever you're going to want when you get back to the car in order to refuel, recharge, and get you maybe to the restaurant where you might be having a really delicious dinner and celebrating what you've just achieved in the mountains. So now we're ready to start packing our pack. We have our piles divided up so it's clear. My accessibles, I'm going to pack last. I don't want those involved in the initial packing process or they could get buried. But this big stuff, I don't need my crampons on the way to camp. I don't need my helmet on the way to camp. That's for summit day. Sleeping bag, I don't need it until camp. Same thing with tent. All that can be packed. And same thing with compressibles. We know none of this needs to be accessed, right? Because the accessibles are here. So I'm going to start with a B item, the big stuff item. And I'm going to give you a tip. Anytime you have a B item that you can turn into a C item, so a big item that you can turn into a compressible, it's going to be way more efficient to pack your pack. So for example, if I have this tent, and instead of leaving it as a big tent, I pull it out and I pack each of these pieces separately. So I pack the tent body, the pole, and even the tent sack separate. It's going to be easier to pack out my backpack. So I'm actually going to start with that. I'll just grab my tent, and remember, I've lined my pack, my sleeping pad and my sit pad are already in there. And I'm going to grab just one corner of the tent, any corner that I want. There's a corner. I'm going to stuff it all the way down into the bottom of my pack and fill up the entire bottom of the pack in as tight of a shape as I can make it. Here we go. So now I've fit the entire tent in my pack to the very bottom. I have this pair of poles, and poles I like to go inside a backpack as well. If you attach them to the outside, then they can get lost as they get hung up on trees and can fall off your pack. So poles I'm going to put in pretty early as well, and I like to put them inside the pack, kind of in the corner of the pack, close to the frame. If you wait too long before you pack the poles, then they'll start to stick out the top because the whole bottom of your pack will be filled. So I will either pack them right after I put the sleeping pad and the butt pad in there, or I'll pack them as maybe the second item. Okay, so these are going to go in. You see they fit easily inside the pack that way. And there's still lots of space left in. So now I could take my sleeping bag out and tuck my sleeping bag in there separate. But unlike the tent, which is mostly waterproof material, especially with the single wall if my water bottle were to burst inside my pack and my sleeping bag weren't in this nice waterproof stuff sack, there could be a problem. So I'm going to leave it in there for now, but I wouldn't always necessarily do that. I'm going to shove my sleeping bag in there. So now, feeling around with my hand inside the pack, I know that there's space in between the side of the pack and that bulky sleeping bag item. There's no space where I stuffed the tent because I turned it into a compressible and filled up all the airspace in my pack. So now with that airspace, I'm going to reach and I'm going to grab any of these compressible or compact items. It doesn't matter what order or what I grab. I'm just going to grab it and shove it so it stuffs around. And I'm going to do this until all that airspace is gone and then go back to a big item. Okay, I've taken up most of the airspace that was around my sleeping bag. Now I'm going to grab another big item, my crampons, and then continue to pack my compressibles around it until all of these piles are gone. Here you can see my entire compressibles pile is gone. My entire big item stuff or pile is gone, with the exception of my helmet. A lot of times I'll save my helmet for last, especially if I have a lighter weight helmet. If I put it in the middle of my pack and I compress around it and maybe I forget about it, I can break it. So this also has a big concavity. So it's nice, just like we did with the pot, to fill that with something. So if I'm gonna put this at the top of my pack, I'll put an accessibles item inside it, like my rain gear. Ball this up. Put that in my helmet. And I can put my next accessibles item underneath because I'm now at the top of my pack. Got both of those lines done. I've started into my accessibles, and you can see here I have just these other accessibles that I might want to be able to just grab and go quite easily. Usually I'll leave a couple bars in the lid of my pack. In my sandwich, maybe my trail mix, which I'm going to have at more of a sit-down lunch break, I'll still put inside the main compartment of my pack because it's not essential that I can grab my sandwich from the top instantly. I'll be stopping for that. I can still put this inside my helmet to prevent it getting crushed. Now the remainder of my accessible items, I've kept it to a minimum, so I should be able to get that mostly in the lid of my backpack for those things that need to be accessed quickly and easily. So make sure you identify the really specific items that you want to be able to get to easily. Some can go in the under part of the lid if you have an under zipper, and the rest can go in the top part. Some packs also have an additional pouch back here. I like to keep that open, especially for the return, these crampon pouches. I won't use it for my crampons, but I will use it for my waste bag. So you have to pack out your solid waste, and it's nice if that stays in a pouch on the outside of your pack rather than going inside of your pack, where it can make everything kind of nasty. The water bottle, you know, some packs have side pouches for water bottles. Most Alpine style backpacks don't, because side pouches on backpacks with water bottles stuffed inside them can allow the water bottle to fall off your pack and slide down a mountain because it's not super well secured. So a lot of times these Alpine packs, I will take that 500 mils of water, make sure I have room in my lid, just put it in my lid. That way I can grab it out and drink, and then if I cross a creek, it's very easy just to take it out, fill it up with another 500 milliliters of water, and keep drinking. And by the time I've reached camp, I've drank a liter of water, and I've never had to carry much, and it's always been accessible. The final step here is to cinch all of these compression straps down on my pack here. But I want to do that only after I've added my final pile, which is not my day clothes. I'm going to wear those, but it's my edges pile. So those are the things like ice axe and pickets that are going to attach to the outside of your pack. Let's take a look at how that works. Okay, so here I have my compression straps. They're still nice and loose. I have my picket, and it has a carabiner associated with it. I'm going to slide it underneath my compression straps. And a lot of packs have a picket pocket, which is just a piece of material you can slide that end of the picket into so that you don't have anything sharp sticking up. And then I just need to clip this strap through the carabiner, either by opening the carabiner or by unclipping the strap, passing it through the eye of the carabiner and clipping it back in. And now I can cinch that side down. Okay, so now that picket is nice and secure. Everything is inside my pack. Everything is accessible. My ice axe holders are different on each pack. Make sure you watch the pack selection portion of our videos to see how to attach your ice axe to a backpack. So this one, open it up. And you can use this side compression strap. Okay, so now my ice axe is secure. And my last item from Edges is my trekking pole. I'm going to clip this to my pack just to make sure it doesn't get left behind, even though in reality it might go with my day clothing. All right, and there you have it. My backpack, nice and svelte, compact, everything accessible that I need, and ready to carry.